Welcome everyone to the Aquarian Wisdom Retreat Centre, Portugal's monthly service activity. And this is for the full moon of Pisces, which is not very far away, about 12 hours, I think, from now. So we've really been in the full moon period for the last couple of days, really, and will be for the next 2 days after. It's usually about 2.5 days either side of the full moon. And you can see there a link on the screen to a 2014 newsletter about Pisces and the so-called prodigal son. And so what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about that, then we'll do a meditation, and then we'll talk some more after that on some other subjects. So the keynote for Pisces is I leave the father's home and turning back I say, a profound and somewhat obscure saying for a lot of people. And so we ask ourselves, what is the father's home? And generally in esotericism, the father concerns the monad or the spirit, and the son represents the soul, and the mother the personality. These are the basic sort of ABCs or triplicities of occultism. And so the story in the Bible of the prodigal son that most of you are probably
Not
familiar
in yet.
with. Excuse me? Can you mute yourselves when you come into the meeting, please? So, where was I? We were talking about the biblical story of the prodigal son. And I'm just going to read to you a couple of paragraphs about that. A father gives the younger of his two sons his inheritance before he dies. The younger son, after wasting his fortune, goes hungry during a famine. And during that time he had to fill his belly with the husks that the swine did eat, quote unquote. He then repents and returns home, where the father holds a feast to celebrate his return. And the older son refuses to participate, stating that in all the time the other son has worked for the father, or that he worked for the father, I should say, he did not even give him a goat to celebrate with his friends. His father reminds the older son that everything the father has is the older son's, but that they should still celebrate the return of the younger son as he has come back to them. So as I said, in esotericism, the father is the monad or spirit aspect. The older son is actually the soul. Everything the father has is the older son's, so to speak. The close relationship of the monad to the soul. And the younger prodigal son is the personality life experienced in many incarnations. Prodigal actually translates as characterized by profuse or wasteful extravagance. The parable of the prodigal son from Luke chapter 15 tells how a father's younger son took his journey into a far country and there wasted his substance upon riotous living. Sounds a bit like my life just before my first sudden return. But anyway, what is the significance of the prodigal son esoterically? Prodigal is related to prodigious, which is an expansive keyword for Jupiter, the co-ruler of Pisces. Jupiter, of course, the ruler of the second ray of love wisdom, which is one of the primary rays to pour through Pisces, along with the sixth ray, which is ruled by Neptune. Neptune considered the exoteric ruler these days, but Jupiter is still very much the co-ruler of Pisces. So Jupiter as co-ruler of Pisces rules the so-called ordinary wheel upon the mutable cross, whose Pisces keynote is go forth into matter, or similarly in Jupiter Zeus's promiscuous language, go forth and multiply. So in ancient mythology, Jupiter or Zeus is always having affairs with other gods, and hence his prodigious um, production, if you like, of which is really a metaphor for the expansive consciousness of Jupiter, and of course the other sign which it rules, Sagittarius. But Pisces also is expansive like Sagittarius in terms of the broad ocean of consciousness that the two fishes inhabit, and of course over which Neptune, the god of the waters, rules. And in this respect, we have the sensitivity of Pisces, water being a symbol of the astral body. So anyway, the keynote of the prodigal son story is forgiveness of the father to the son, and the heartfelt welcoming back into the fold. And without forgiveness, there will always be separation and bitterness. Forgiveness is the most outstanding feature of Pisces, and is covered in another one of my newsletters called The Forge of Forgiveness. If you really want to penetrate into the highest qualities of Pisces, the meditation and reading and research on forgiveness is most rewarding. So, the prodigal son, the youngest son, he turns back to save. This is the part of the keynote of Pisces. I leave the father's home, and turning back I save. So after those many incarnations, the the um, the individual starts to wake up to the sense of soul and starts to consciously tread the path back to the monad via the soul, by being far more soul conscious. And where am I now? So, in other words, on the return journey to the Father, there is a saving or salvaging process that takes place within the individual's personality vehicles, increasing their atomic vibration in every life until a greater personality integration takes place, with a subsequent greater alignment with the higher self of the soul. But it is not only that, because as we salvage ourselves, so to speak, we salvage all those that are related to us on the way, and they to us as well. There is a salvaging of other souls upon the way, emulating the way of the Christ as the Redeemer of humanity. The Christ, of course, being the great Piscean avatar that is about to return to inaugurate the age of Aquarius, to be the avatar, in fact, for the Aquarian age. So this redeeming, saving quality is why some Pisces people can sometimes suffer from a savior complex, or being a rescuer. There's that innate drive deep within the Pisces psyche. So humanity has been salvaged many times by the guides of the race. There was a classic quote in one of the blue books where the Master Glass Cool is talking about the Atlantean flood, and he's talking about the Ark, Noah's Ark, and he says, symbolically speaking, the inhabitants of the Ark and their descendants stand for the salvaged remnant of humanity, salvaged in spite of themselves and in face of stupendous difficulties by the Great White Lodge. I always laugh at that particular phrase, in spite of themselves, because of the recalcitrant nature of humanity that can get stuck and keep on binding themselves to the wheel of karma through not being able to change their old patterns. So, of course, forgiveness is the opposite of revenge. Most movies that we watch, and a lot of movies, are based on the revenge principle. someone did someone else wrong and someone else goes after that person to take revenge, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. This is the old, redundant thinking of the Old Testament kind of thinking that's thousands of years old. And Mark Twain says, "Forgiveness is the fragrance the violet sheds on the heel that has crushed it." So we have other words associated with Pisces, such as sacrifice, service, forgiveness. I've mentioned the art of listening, the ability to receive. To Pisces is a very receptive, absorbent sign. Hence, they make great counselors because of their empathy and for their ability to hear people. In hearing is half the healing for a lot of people. So, with this word sacrifice, it connotes a death that we undergo when a sacrifice is made. Sacri, as in sacral center, we raise up from the lower center to the higher centers. Through the death that you undergo through sacrifice comes a new life. And of course, this also relates to the sacrifice petals of the heart lotus, the last row of petals to be unfolded after the knowledge and love petals of the 12-petaled heart lotus that shields or covers the central core where the individual starts to awaken to monadic or spiritual consciousness, spirit consciousness, I should say. So anyway, and so when we look at the soul ruler of Pisces, it's Pluto, the Lord of Death, the Lord of the underworld, the destroyer, also the co-ruler of another water sign, Scorpio. Scorpio being a sign of initiation and relating to the control of the astral body, and a much more difficult sign emotionally in many ways than Pisces in terms of the intensity of the negative emotions that can be experienced in that sign. Pisces is a lot more refined in some ways. So, and this is because of Neptune's influence as opposed to the influence of Mars, the god of war, and Pluto, the rulers of Scorpio. Hence, the importance of the Lord of Death, Pluto, as the esoteric ruler of Pisces. This is where Pluto links with his brother and co-ruler of the first ray of will or power, which is Vulcan, in expressing the first ray energy through Pisces, a sign traditionally associated, of course, with love, wisdom. But Pluto, like Pluto, Vulcan also works underground and unseen, sweating at his furnace, forging the swords and armor of his spiritual weaponry. Hence, forgiveness is forged through Pluto's destroying work where the past is released, and through Vulcan's building work that allows the springs of life to flow anew. So an act of true forgiveness and sacrifice or absorption puts an individual in touch with the forces of Shambhala, the planetary head center. And of course, Shambhala is known for the energy of the first ray of will or power. So I'm just going to pause for a moment. Everything okay there technically? And please, newcomers, do mute yourself as soon as you come in. Constance, can you do that, please? Or someone mute Constance? Right. So a little bit more here to share around this theme of these several themes of Pisces. This work of salvage, is really about the sacredization of the planet, salvage, save, um, you know, really transforming the substance of the planet and raising it to a higher frequency, as we do in our own individual bodies. And of course, each individual who liberates themselves successively from lifetime to lifetime is contributing to the overall liberation of the planet. And liberation equals initiation, essentially. The planet itself undergoes initiations just as we as individuals do, and eventually we liberate ourselves from ever having to come back and incarnate again. We get to choose other cosmic paths that go beyond this planet. Eventually, in the long history of humanity, of course. So, in terms of this Shambhala force that is associated with the first ray, with Pluto and Vulcan, the Tibetan says this spirit of sacrifice is ever found when the Shambhala force is rightly contacted, even in the smallest degree, and the underlying impulse behind the loving will of God is sensed and understood, accompanied, as this always is, with the desire to participate in that will and its spirit of divine sacrifice. You know, the Sanat is called the Great Sacrifice. Sanat who was based or anchored, if you like, at Shambhala, um, the eternal watcher who watches over humanity and waits until that last weary pilgrim comes home. I'm paraphrasing here from the old commentary. But it's a very moving thing to consider. This being who's the personality expression of our planetary logos has chosen to make this great sacrifice and sit on his throne at Shambhala, so to speak, till those pilgrims have liberated themselves. So, coming back to forgiveness for a moment, DK goes on to tell us the word forgiveness is a curious and unusual one and signifies to give for. Forgiveness is not therefore a synonym for pardon, though the word has been distorted in theological circles to mean this. Forgiveness is sacrifice, and is the giving up of oneself, even of one's very life, for the sake of others and for the good of the whole group. Mahatma Gandhi says, "The weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is an attribute of the strong." So it's interesting to note that at the end of the age of Pisces, the quality of forgiveness does not yet quite seem to be part of the major expression of humanity. When is humanity going to let itself off the hook, so to speak? This latter term, this phrase, has interesting connotations, implying the lower scorpionic expression of the cycle of blame and revenge, the polar opposite to forgiveness and sacrifice. This is a key thing to reflect upon. And so again, the Tibetan master Dwaras Khul points out that forgiveness is not as strong as it should be, partly because of its distorted interpretation. He says one basic divine attribute is not yet as strong as it should be in humanity, the attribute of forgiveness. It is still associated with magnanimity, with being generous to others. It's much more than that. It's not even that, actually. Therefore, he says, forgiveness or sacrifice in order to save others is increasingly the recognized needed keynote at this time, and in this recognition lies much to justify the sorry story of past evolutionary processes and methods. He says, when it is recognized that the giving for involves right living upon the physical plane, and not, as is so often thought, the dying of the physical body, then we shall see a revitalized world. It is the living Christ, the living world Saviour, who saves humanity. And he goes on to say it is the sacrifice day by day in the process of daily living which can save the world of men the sacrifice of selfish personal interest for the good of the whole and the giving up of one's practical life to the salvage of the world. And this word salvage is also related to renunciation, which DK discusses frequently in regard to the fourth initiation, which is regarded as the liberation initiation, where there can be a choice made whether to come back or not, depending on one's ray line of evolution. So and, oh, here's one I posted tonight on Facebook. To hold before humanity as part of the living instruction which the men of goodwill teach and live out in their daily lives, the necessity of a great group participation in a day of forgiveness and of forgetting. This is a forgiveness which is based upon a recognition of the universality of human error in the past and the fact that there is no blame to be apportioned to this or that group, nation, or church, but that we have all made mistakes, have all failed to understand, and have all been guilty of a lack of love and of tolerance. It is not therefore forgiveness which is based upon the spirit of magnanimity or a sense of expediency or superiority, but upon a desire to forget the past and to push forward into the new age and participate in a new social order free from the ancient hatreds, relinquishing the memory of the old mistakes in policy, judgment, and method, and ignoring the habitual barriers and our normal separative instincts. That's from Esoteric Psychology 2, that quote. And particularly pertinent in this day and age, right now, what's going on in the world. And another good quote from Catherine Ponder. She says, when you hold resentment toward another, you are bound to that person or condition by an emotional link that is stronger than steel. Forgiveness is the only way to dissolve that link and get free. So, we can have a little question and answer or comments for 5 minutes before we do the meditation. Now, if you wish. Any parts there that were not very clear at all, please don't be shy and speak up and ask a question if you need to. See a few familiar names there. Hi, Katja. Okay. You're all very quiet tonight. Quiet as church mice. Okay, we can go straight to the meditation then, seeing we're in this quiet space. And we can share impressions afterwards, and then we can talk a little bit more about Pisces and another subject related to Pisces. So I'm going to turn my video off. Can still hear me okay? My sound's still okay, Julia and Inez?
Yes, it is.
Okay, very good. Okay then. Let's take a few deep breaths and completely relinquish and release all the tension of the day thus far. Sounding the Om 3 times to align the mental, astral, and physical bodies, visualizing with each the light pouring through these personality vehicles, bringing them into light, to alignment and calmness. Feeling that stillness within as your alignment falls into place, connecting with the inner silence, the deep recesses of the heart. And recognizing that spark of intense light that resides right in the center of the heart. See the intensity of that light radiating outwards, and with that light connecting to all the other people here tonight, today, connecting with one another, heart to heart, mind to mind. In this focused meditation for the Pisces Solar Festival, we offer ourselves in group service, holding the mind steady in the light. We become aware of all the other meditating groups around the planet, isolated individuals, groups, within this full moon period, all linking up with one another, a great grid of golden light surrounding the planet. Great grid of geometrical triangles linked to one another, that constitutes the aura of our planet. And the new group of world servers that works through it, consciously transforming the very substance of this planet, salvaging that substance. And with these world servers and groups, we sense the higher participation of the Masters of Wisdom, the hierarchy, Christ, Sanat Kumara, all gathered and focused in the precipitation of the planetary plan, we become aware of the 5 planetary centers: London, New York, Geneva, Darjeeling, Tokyo. We see the triangular aura of the planet linking to these 5 planetary centers, the light pouring through each center, particularly the energy of love wisdom, the second ray of love wisdom. We see that energy pouring through the indigo blue light, purifying, cleansing, purging each of those planetary centers. And radiating out to all the nations associated with those centers. Far East, Central Asia, Europe, the Americas, and so we direct these forces of love wisdom as a group, in concert with all the other groups, focusing, praying for planetary peace, and we contemplate the keynote for Pisces. I leave the Father's home, and turning back, I say, let us hold the silence for a few minutes as we contemplate this and keep directing the energies through the centers and around the planet. holding the mind steady in the light. As our hearts overflow with the energy of love wisdom, pouring forth to humanity. Let us ponder upon the redemption of humanity through forgiveness. And let us reflect for a moment upon the role of sacrifice in our own lives. Let us now conclude by sounding the great invocation, and as we do, visualizing the light pouring into the planet, awakening humanity, clearing the clouds of glamour and illusion, and healing all who suffer. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center, where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center, which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Restore the plan on earth. Thank you very much. Okay, I invite you all, or anyone who wishes to share their impressions of the meditation. We have another while to explore some other themes of Pisces. So, but if some of you want to go now and hold that meditation space, feel free to do that too. No one wants to share anything? Okay. My, you are a shy lot, aren't you? All right. Okay, Pavel, you want to say something? Nope. Any questions or comments from the previous session before the meditation, before we move on?
Philip, it's Jenny.
Hey, Jenny.
I'm just wondering how much we can use the message of forgiveness for what's going on in the world and how beneficial that would be to the extent that we can really be in forgiveness.
Yeah, easier said than done, isn't it? Um, the quote I read out before was quite profound of not blaming or finding fault with. Of course, that's what we all do automatically every day with someone else or a group or a nation or a leader. We continually do it. And um, of course, we can identify wrong and causes caused by people, but it's really quite a profound quote to ponder on, I think. How to really live that, embody that. It's the core of the second ray of love wisdom, I think. Finds its strongest expression through the Virgo Pisces axis, in fact, the opposite side of Pisces, where the moon is tonight, of course, in Virgo, sun in Pisces. Yeah. So I don't know what the exact answer to that is, Jenny, but that's one stab at it. Anyone else? Jim says, it occurred to me that it's accepting that's just where people are. Yeah, indeed. Everyone has to come to their own realization that they can get hints and stimulation from other people, but ultimately we're all on our own in terms of arriving at those points because we have free will. At least we used to. So, all right. Then, Julia, can you click on that other link to share the page, please, with the other link I sent to you on Telegram? Not that one. This is the Pisces 2017 newsletter um, about Albert Einstein, whose birthday was a couple of days ago, on the 14th of March. I call him a scientist, musician, and initiate. Can everyone read that okay? Is that legible? That text size that you can see on your screen? It should
It's
be
good for
anyway.
me.
Yeah, okay. Just read this first paragraph. Einstein is a great example of an advanced soul who was not only a genius in the field of physics and mathematics, but a musician and humanist. There was also a partly substantiated story that he kept a copy of H.P. Blavatsky's The Secret Doctrine on his desk, thoroughly annotated and scribbled in. Einstein's gentle and compassionate Piscean nature is reflected in the following quote: "A human being is part of the whole called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. We experience ourselves, our thoughts and feelings as something separate from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from the prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. The true value of a human being is determined by the measure and the sense in which they have obtained liberation from the self. We shall require a substantially new manner of thinking if humanity is to survive. Very interesting passage, given that Pisces is a sign of imprisonment. It's a sign of imprisonment and of liberation, the opposite pole to imprisonment. And Einstein was Cancer rising with the moon in Sagittarius. And I've got here a little, underneath his picture there, Sagittarius, his fine hair is like a forest of tiny psychic antennae. Einstein, in some ways, was a psychic, in fact. The Tibetan tells us in esoteric astrology that the combination of Cancer and Pisces represents the medium, or the mediator, the medium at the lower level of working just through the solar plexus. You go to see who reads your tarot cards, for instance, or the mediator, the one who's working from the higher centers, from the heart center and beyond. And DK discusses this medium and the mediator in esoteric astrology in the chapter in Pisces. But he says the best combination for the medium is Cancer rising with the sun in Pisces, or vice versa. And there is some anecdotal stories that Einstein used to uh, dream away in the bathtub for over a day. The water, of course, being Cancer and Pisces both being water signs, ruled by Neptune ruling Pisces, and also the esoteric ruler of Cancer. And that he looked like a shriveled up white prune, apparently, through being in the bath for so long. But because he had gone into a reverie, a dream state, whereby he was really right up there on the abstract plane, or the Buddhic plane, the plane of direct knowledge or intuition, which Neptune actually is the main conveyor of. Neptune and Mercury, I believe, are the main Buddhic factors in the horoscope, but particularly Neptune. So anyway, can you just scroll down a bit, please, Julia? You there, Julia? Can you scroll down a bit, please? Keep going. Keep going so the whole next page comes up. Can you hear me? All right. And can you keep going to that next quote where it says the most beautiful? Can you bring that up to the top? Keep going. Can you keep bringing it up? It might be easier if I take over the sharing. So I'll see if I can do that on my. Don't worry about it. I'll use yours for now. Oh, did you unshare? I'll try that one. Hang on a second. Sorry about this. This could be a moment. Here we go. Sorry, I can't actually figure it out. Can you reshare again, please, Julia? There we go. So if you can just bring that top bit down a bit where it says able to ground. I just want to start the beginning of that paragraph. There we go. With Neptune as esoteric ruler of his horoscope, his position in the sign of Taurus. Oh, you've lost it. Can you just go back up again? Oh, okay, it's down there. Okay, I'm trying to keep track of it. Neptune is the esoteric ruler of his horoscope. Its position in the sign of Taurus was very important. It represented the faculty of being able to ground and anchor his Neptunian inspirations and visions through earthly practical Taurus. Taurus is also the mother of illumination, and Einstein was a shining beacon of light at the beginning of the scientific age of Aquarius. He had Jupiter in Aquarius in his ninth house of the higher wisdom, the sciences and arts and academia. He was a university professor, etc., etc. Jupiter is the sole ruler of Aquarius, as well as the second ray of love wisdom, which Einstein had either prominently in his ray structure or invoked through his Pisces personality. Neptune also rules music, for which Einstein trained on the violin from the age of 5. He says, if I were not a physicist, I would probably be a musician. I often think in music, I live my daydreams in music, I see my life in terms of music, I get most joy in life out of music. So this is, music is the universal language, is it not? If you can keep scrolling down, please, Julia, past the next couple of paragraphs. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going past the whole, keep going past all this stuff. A bit faster, please. So music was the ideal balance for Einstein's deeply scientific mind, probably on the fifth ray of science. He started with a special theory of relativity, originally known as the electrodynamics of moving bodies, when transiting Saturn was exactly conjunct Jupiter in Aquarius, Aquarius being the sign of science, of course, through its exoteric ruler Uranus. And transiting Neptune was conjunct his Cancer ascendant, which is interesting. It represents a real kind of awakening in many ways. The esoteric ruler of the ascendant conjunct the ascendant. This reminds me also of Alice Bailey's chart. She was a Leo rising, but when the Tibetan first contacted her in 1919, transiting Neptune, which is also the sole ruler of Leo, was going across her ascendant at that time, representing the telepathic impressions that she was receiving intuitively from the Tibetan. If you just scroll down again, please, Juliet. A couple more paragraphs. Keep going, please. Einstein's mind was conditioned by some other important astrological factors. He had Mercury, thinking, Saturn, ruling the mental body, and Venus, mind, all in headstrong Aries. Maybe you can move your mouse across the Aries planets there in the 10th house, Julia. Can you move your mouse, hover your mouse over the 10th house planets? Over the 10th house. Over the, yeah. Is your mouse getting out of control there on you or something? It's kind of flat. There we go. You'll notice that Mercury is the esoteric ruler of Aries. And as I said before, Mercury is the second major, for me, I think, indicator of intuition in the horoscope. Mercury rules the lower mind, the higher mind, and the Buddhic plane. So it has 3 different levels of expression depending on where the individual is at. So Mercury there conjunct Saturn in Aries, which is also the position of Alice Bailey's Saturn, in fact. They were born, I think, almost in the same year, 1870. I think she was born 1895 from memory, or yeah. Anyway, they both had Saturn in Aries. Um, so, and then there's Venus in Aries, and Venus in Aries is also intuition. Venus is typically the mind, ruling the 5th ray of science, but in Aries, the mind is bypassed and that direct knowledge or Buddhic realm is accessed. So, right, if you can scroll down a little bit further to bring up the whole chart on the screen, you see the moon in Sagittarius over there in the 6th house. And in fact, it makes a close trine to Venus up there in Aries, the 10th house. So Sagittarius, the sign of spiritual philosophy, which was prominent in the chart of Krishnamurti. So it also represented the dweller on the threshold or the shadow. And for Krishnamurti, it was him reverting to an ancient form of Vedanta, apparently, that was not suitable for the period that he was teaching in. So I'm not sure exactly what Einstein's limitations were in that respect, but he did subscribe to a lot of different philosophies, maybe Blavatsky, but also the German philosopher Spinoza, who was quite Eastern in his outlook, in fact, as a Western philosopher. There's the Jupiter in Aquarius up there in the 9th house. Accidentally dignified in the 9th house, so it functions very well there. Yeah, so the moon in Sagittarius, of course, is the ruler of his Cancer ascendant, and therefore he had to transcend its limitations. But also, just like Krishnamurti, the moon in Sagittarius represented past wisdom and knowledge stored up that he would intuitively tap into. Krishnamurti, for instance, was able to hold a conversation with leading physicists and scientists and other people without even having read anything, and converse with them on the mental plane through his past accumulated knowledge. Okay, any comments or questions so far, anyone? Okay. If you could scroll down a little bit further, Julia. You can go back to the text again. What else is coming here? And I speculate whether Einstein took the 3rd initiation, perhaps even higher. It's interesting to note that Mercury and Saturn are in close conjunction in Aries. Just keep that text on the screen there, can you? You can go up, Julia. We don't need the chart now. And bearing in mind too, when we speculate about these stages of initiation being a sub-science of esoteric astrology, that a person only shows a fraction of their spiritual being sometimes in any life. We only see a fragment, just a little bit of the bandwidth, if you like, of visible light spectrum. And so appearances can be deceptive. All right, so I talk about this ability to create thought forms with Mercury and Saturn. Saturn is the ruler of the throat chakra, which is the seat or the doorway to the mental body, and organizes raw ideas into thought forms or geometrical patterns upon the mental plane, and those patterns eventually precipitate to the physical plane, and hence the practicality of Saturn, particularly as it's through its rulership of Capricorn, um, of bringing spirit into matter. So anyway, can you keep scrolling down, Julia, to the Power of Venus paragraph? Bring it up to the top of the page if you don't mind. There's just a quote about Venus and intuition there, which I touched upon before. You can read that in your own time if you like. Keep scrolling down, thanks. Keep scrolling down, please. I do speculate about Einstein taking the fourth initiation there too. Okay. So, enough said. There we have it. The only way to learn astrology is to study charts of yourself, your friends, your family, and famous people in history. And an identical chart for an evolved person, an identical chart to Einstein, for instance, in an unevolved person would express quite differently than what the use that he made of his horoscope. No comments or questions, please? Nothing? Okay. Well, I was hoping a bit more for a discussion tonight, but seeing everyone is not really wanting to ask anything or discuss anything, I think we'll wrap up the meeting and call it a night. I'm quite happy to go for much longer if you like, but that was all the material that I wanted to share with you today. So, um,
Is it possible that we could talk about the transits of the full moon tonight
yeah.
relative to current events, perhaps? Thank you.
Um, well, one of the things I was going to talk about tonight was just the transits of Neptune, in fact, the ruler of Pisces, in United States, his horoscope, um, and in fact, I'll share my screen if you like. And can everyone see that chart? Is that legible? That chart? Hello.
Yes, it's
Must.
legible.
Sorry. Is it
Yes,
legible?
yes, it's legible.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So this is a quadri wheel with United States chart at the center. The next two wheels are the secondary progressions and solar arc directions, and the outer wheel are the transits in the sky at the moment. Now, in the last few years, since 2016, I've been commenting quite a bit on the United States, and particularly this progressed sun in Pisces down here. I talk about this in relationship to glamour, to Maya, to the opioid crisis in the United States, because Neptune was tracking this progressed sun in Pisces. The progressed sun represents the personality thus far unfolded, and it's the relative degree of awareness that that entity has about the personality. Of course, the United States personality is very old. It's over 200 years old, but it still goes through its evolution of consciousness through these progressions and transits. And so Neptune in its lower aspect represents addiction. It represents he's the sower of deception and illusion. And so I was looking at that, and that is still very, I think, very prominent in the United States. Not just the 1776 exoteric chart, but also the fact that the United States is a 6-ray personality ruled by Neptune and Mars. And I've often commented about this Mars in Gemini square to natal Neptune. It's quite a close square. I've written pages and pages or chapters on this, as identifying this Mars Neptune as the unintegrated personality of the United States, and the main problem of it getting into trouble with foreign affairs. Neptune in the 9th house, foreign affairs. Okay, and the illusion, Mars square Neptune can really foster that illusion. But what we have here are the two rulers of the solar plexus center in square to each other, representing the emotional immaturity of the United States, a young country. So what's happening now is that transiting Neptune is coming in to activate that Mars Neptune. It's been squaring Mars during 2021, and it will continue to oppose Neptune. In other words, keep activating this Mars square Neptune for a while yet. And I do discuss that in the latest newsletter. And so the principle of illusion, deception, or mass formation as they call it, will continue as it has done intensely for the last couple of years, arguably, as I have argued in many of my newsletters for the last couple of years. We are seeing quite a phenomenon now in the United States, and I don't want to get political, but we're seeing it on both sides of the political spectrum, all through the political spectrum, of almost a mass madness taking place in the media, and what people are saying about the crisis in Europe, with Russia and Ukraine. I've never seen anything like it. Well, I have, but not to this extent. It's really quite an extraordinary phenomenon, and I believe this is Neptune. This is the activation of this what I call this immature pattern here, Mars Neptune, and it's not getting any more mature by the looks of it. It's just doing the same old thing again. It's very unfortunate. So that's one thing. Notice, of course, the sun on this full moon is in the late 3rd house, and it's not well, it's actually sextiling Pluto in Capricorn, and it's the Pluto return for 2022 is the exact period of the Pluto return for USA. So huge regeneration, transformation of the country, and some pretty heavy stuff will probably go down this year for sure. It already is, and what I've said in the past about Mars in the 7th house, squaring Neptune, is the aggressive nature of the United States to other countries, and the warmonger, if you like, the going in boots and all gung ho. This is the most difficult position of any planet in this horoscope, arguably in this 1776 horoscope. So that's being activated to the max now, and it's a very, very dangerous situation we have in the world. I believe if the US backed down and stopped all this rhetoric, that there would be peace in Europe. But they've, as I've said in my latest newsletter, they've pushed events in the last 10, 20 years to bring us to this point. I believe. I know some of you disagree with me, but that's my best analysis thus far. So what's also happening, Ginny, is that progress mid-heaven, I've been looking at this today actually, is over here in Gemini. That's the progressed mid-heaven that's come all the way around here in the last couple of hundred years. The public, the career, the work, all that kind of stuff, the Dharma, if you like. And it's almost exactly conjunct natal Uranus in the next 2 years, to be exactly. I think it's within orb of aspect now. Uranus, the revolutionary, the ruler of the American Aquarian soul, and also the moon in Aquarius in this exoteric chart. So during its Pluto return, this progressed mid-heaven coming into conjunct Uranus is going to set the scene for revolution in the United States. And that's certainly on the cards as far as breaking down of the process that Pluto is going to bring about, and the resurgence or re-emergence of the phoenix from the ashes, so to speak. Uranus representing radical change. It could even represent civil war. I've been speculating on that for the last 20 years, in fact, in various essays. But certainly a radical change there brought about. So there are just a few of the things. I hope that answers your question somewhat. Anyone else?
You mentioned Civil War. That's something that I studied years ago relative to the U.S. situation. And I have some concerns that the United States is getting so corrupted that it may actually turn into a civil war in the next couple of years. Definitely
Well,
types of revolutions.
yeah, there's many dissatisfied elements within the states. There's some states want to secede from the union, and as we know, of course. So this is truly the United States facing its dweller. As I've often said, as an Aquarian soul, the United States soul mission is to lead the world into the age of Aquarius, along with Russia, who is also an Aquarian soul. The only 2 nations out of 3 nations that are Aquarian souls, the other one is Netherlands, to lead the world into the Aquarian age along within the triangle of Britain, Russia, and the USA, as I've said many times, of course. That was originally, anyway, the hierarchical plan. I assume that it still is because it hasn't really had time to, the Aquarian age, we're not really properly in the Aquarian age yet. So there's that. And this is the first Pluto return in the nation's history. So it has to break down all the patterns and crystallizations that have been created since its birth. And one of those main patterns is the whole capitalist system and corporations that have come to dominate the nation and dictate to government. Basically, that's what's happened. in order for a fair redistribution of resources to be effected. And we're seeing the gradual breakdown of that now. In fact, the fiat currency may change soon to be dominated by the ruble or the Chinese yuan. I know that those nations want to remove the US dollar as the dominating force in the world. And so this is what's going on behind the scenes right now as well. A whole changing of the financial system going on, trying to get most people off cash onto digital currency and so forth. Many things now. It's a very, very complex world situation right now, some of which is being played out in Russia and Ukraine. Of course, this ties in with the World Economic Forum and all the other bodies and institutions and governments that have been dictating policy for the last couple of years. So they've basically taken over the world. That's what we're experiencing. And it will keep on happening if people don't stand up for their rights. As I keep on saying too, like a broken record. Yeah, enough said. Anyone else? Well, thank you all for coming, everyone. Rebecca here says, civil war seems to be already have erupted in another form. The Democrats versus, I didn't see the rest of that. Anyway, thanks very much for coming, everyone. Do consider making a donation to the Aquarian Wisdom Retreat Centre, Portugal. We have not got a property yet, but we're working on that and confident that something will emerge in the next couple of years. So do tell people about this work, this project. Some people think it's already manifested, but that's just in our imagination so far. Do tell other people too. They're very welcome to come to this monthly webinar, and particularly the meditation. I think it's the most important part. I'll always do a presentation, of course, on something or other, but the meditation and the service work through meditation in each full moon cycle is the best that we can do together in these monthly gatherings. So thanks again, everyone, and I'll close the meeting. You can finish the recording there, Julia.